Sure.
Welcome to my podcast. Today's dream, tomorrow's reality. My name is Vicky Poole, and I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. This podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach, and it's all about embracing our Mosaic life. Now, some of you may ask, what is a Mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest I'll introduce in just a moment. But I would love for you to do me a solid, and that is leave a comment and remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this gentleman right here is Dr. Gary, and I met him through one of my friends. I believe she might be a friend of his, or at least acquaintance, Susan Anderson. And so I'm really excited to get to know Dr. Gary because I don't know anything really. So we're going to get to learn about him and say hello together. So if you don't mind, Dr. Gary, just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Love being put on the spot. That's great. Being a firstborn New York Jewish male, I have a lot of assertive energy, and having spent a lot of my adult life moving into the unknown from New York, where I was born, and keep going west, California, Hawaii, New Zealand, Australia, Bali, and Thailand. I've been moving westward all these years. I have a real appreciation for the unknown and helping take other people out of their own fixed conditions to free up what new possibilities they'd like to see emerge in their thinking, their speaking, their actions, their interactions, and living their dream life, which is what I've been doing over now 73 years a week ago. That's
Oh,
the
okay. Well, happy
beginning of.
birthday.
Thank you. 73 years young, living in a permaculture community at the top of a mountain near Brisbane, Australia, 550 meters above sea level, totally off grid, 2 hours from the nearest town. The short version of my introduction would be taking what I just told you and putting in between the layers of bread that I just shared, the meat, the cheese, the depending on whether you're vegetarian or not, the lovely flavors of what I've done to create the tapestry of my life in a very unusual way. What can I say? I started off, as I mentioned, in a very conservative family, and I was anything but.
Mhm.
The
So you
short
were the black
version,
sheep of the
well, I
family,
was the black sheep. I probably
right?
still am the black sheep, but my parents are passed over. So they actually felt very, my dad in particular, uh, honored by me being willing to stick by my guns, even though I would not conform. I went to one of the best private secondary high schools in the United States and the world, Horaceman private secondary school in New York City. And a lot of people got into, so did I, an Ivy League school. And I went to Johns Hopkins pre-med. And my interest, however, was always to explore what is beyond the surface. In my teenage years, I was reading Hermann Hesse and I was studying existentialism, improvisational theater. As a champion springboard diver, gymnast, and track star, I was very physical. I still am. You can see that. I'm very physical and very, very vibrant, very alive for any age. And when I did not get into medical school, I wondered, what in the world am I going to do with my life? And because I had such a prowess and understanding of both the body and psychology and wonderful English program that we had at Horace Mann, so I was able to write and communicate myself quite well. I wound up putting these all together and basically creating my own form of body therapy, transformational body therapy, where I stretch the muscles of the body
Hmm.
while speaking in rhyme at the same time to take people on a very concentrated vision quest and to swiftly transform their self-talk so their relationship with their body, their communication, their partnerships, their creativity, and their contribution to humanity swiftly, instantly transformed. I do this with rhyme at the same time, like Dr. Seuss. So people are taken on this whimsical journey and they don't actually realize that while they're laughing their guts out and crying their guts out while clearing patterns, everything is shifting in a
Yeah.
multi-sensory way. This is an essence
Kind of
of what
like
I
going
developed.
underneath the radar.
I do. I go underneath the radar, and I first always check whether it's working with presentation coaching on the one hand, body therapy on the other, awakening creativity. Lately, I've been having quite a number of new opportunities with doing keynote speaking around the world for large conferences. After all these years, I'm able to get under the surface by engaging the audience with participatory stories, whether the audience is one person or a whole group of people, to
Hmm.
engage people in an active listening so that their ability to shift patterns in their life is almost instantly, as I mentioned a few moments ago, transformed. I use Monty Python techniques in group audiences. An example, I always believe that giving examples is really much more telling than just talking about things. Was I was at the Intercontinental Hotel in Singapore a number of years ago, and I was asked to lead a program for the executive management committee, the department heads of this company. And the man who was the managing director of the hotel, Gerhard Kropp, I remember him to this day.
Hmm.
He was very happy for me to stage Monty Python-esque, ridiculous, exaggerated scenarios of some of the worst fears of things that happened, that do happen. And they came up with an example of what do you do when one of our clients, one of our customers, has a broken light bulb? Do you go to housekeeping? Do you go to engineering? Do you go to the front desk? They didn't know. They didn't have a structure set in place. So I had them exaggerate everything that goes wrong. Let's make it into a fun ridiculosity because there's a velocity to ridiculosity. By having so much fun, people come out of their familiar zones and break free. So
Hmm.
the CEO, the managing director, rose his hand and he said, I want to be that client. I want to be that terrible, argumentative, me person that needs to have that light bulb changed. I want to make a real problem for the hotel. I say, yeah, you don't get a chance to do this very often, do you? He said, exactly. I want to see what it's like to be on the other side. And then we had people who represented, obviously, housekeeping, engineering, front desk. And they played out this ridiculous satire. At one point, I stopped them and I asked for feedback from the audience, from all of the other department heads who were listening. And there was feedback: you talked too quickly, or you didn't develop enough rapport, or you, the person who's the upset person, you really need to provide a chain of command so people have a clear understanding of ABC, one, two, three, what happens. And they shifted their entire policy around by observing the way that they dealt with each other and didn't do it very well, so that they know in the future we're going to put them to the front desk first, and then we're going to decide whether it's an emergency, the lights are out, it's dark, or the person needs to do a project, or they need to go away for an hour or two while we go to the room and fix the actual electricity while they're out of the room. So they developed a structure that was very powerful. So this is how I work. I often go like this with people. Go like this with me. I want to show you something. This is a triangle shape. And if
Hmm.
you look at the three apexes of the triangle, this is one of the things I teach in my presentation coaching. The first apex is the P, that stands for principle, point of view. The
Hmm.
next apex, any one of your elbows will do, is the example or the story, like the one I just gave. But it's not complete. This PEA cycle of communication, P formula, P principle, E example, A application, until those who are listening, the audience, gets the WIIFM. What's in it for me from the audience's point of view? So
Hmm.
for every, thank you, point that a speaker makes when I'm coaching them on stage, I have them match that point with one example, one story, one metaphor. It could be just a line, followed by what did we learn from this? How does this apply to you who are listening and improving your ability to speak with full-bodied engagement, interactive impact, and effectiveness in your live and online presentation? So when we then make a point, PEA, or even plan to make a speech, instead of writing down the points, you do them in the forms of these triangles. Point one, example one, application one. And this too is an example that I'm giving
Hmm.
you of how I work with speakers dynamically, even with someone who doesn't have the presentation or someone who's at the top of their game. So they're more connected to the audience, their message, their messaging, and their body. So this is how I work. It's a very
Hmm.
multi-sensory, interactive, engaging way rather than a talking head. This is the right thing to do when you're standing in front of a group. No, 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 no. It's much more engaging, coming from the deepest centers of one's own body, the
Yeah.
guts, the
Beautiful.
foundation, the heart,
Yeah.
the head, all lined up as one. This is what I teach, and this is how I work in a very interactive, participatory way.
Nice. Well, or you may not know, but I'm a transformational coach and a hypnotist. And
Fantastic.
yes, and I think I said that in my intro.
You
However,
do.
the thing that's interesting is I help people that are speakers or wanting to be speakers because a lot of them get all this tutelage from people that are helping them design their speech, and they're supposed to have their hands in a certain way, and they're supposed to stand, and they're supposed to do all these things, which makes them feel so mechanical, and it's really hard to speak your truth and be vulnerable and do all of that if you're feeling bound by all these little puppet strings that keep you acting a certain way. So I work with them with hypnosis primarily to kind of get them to where they're listening more to their intuition and seeing the audience and feeling the energy of people and interacting using those sensory places. Now, I don't do all the things that you do. That sounds amazing. But I do hypnosis primarily to help people with that kind of thing. But it is amazing to me. There are so many people that would love to get up and speak, but they're so afraid. And there's so many fears that are within them about speaking up. And I had mentioned to you that the reason I started my podcast was because I had filtered my voice my whole life. And I knew when I could read energy in people. So when I was talking to someone, I could tell, don't be you like you normally are because that's going to be offensive to them. And I would change how I spoke and how I showed up so that I could communicate with them without any interference. And I
Yeah.
did that for so long that I lost way of who I was. And that's why I started my podcast, because I wanted to be able to speak and not worry about what somebody else's opinion was of it or anything. And in the beginning, this was so anonymous because I didn't have guests on. I just talked myself. I couldn't see a soul there. I just saw myself. I didn't care if anybody responded. But one of the things that is had happened over time was that I started meeting people like you, that I would hear something about their story, or somebody would say, "You've got to have this person on as a guest," which is what Sue did. She said, "You've got to have him on as a guest." I said, "Okay, okay, well, connect us and we'll make that happen." And I can tell already some of the things that probably resonated with her, because you've got a very charismatic personality. You speak very clearly, and I love the moving, all, you're getting the emotions and the movement of the body and the whole thing in there. And I think it's Tony Robbins that talks about when before he gets on stage, he has to get all of his body moving and really get the the blood flowing in his body so that he can connect with it before he steps on stage.
Yeah,
So,
that's very powerful, what you're
yeah.
saying. And in particular, there are specific tools rather than just getting up there and being oneself that I also use when I get up on stage. Some of it is physically stretching the body.
Hmm.
Since that's been a big part of my life anyway, I want to keep my physical body in a flowing state. When I do both my body therapy, my presentation coaching, my online therapy, and mentoring, one of the phrases that I often use, even in my keynotes and breakout sessions, is to have the audience say these words after me. The more I trust, say these after me, the more I trust
The more I trust
what I deeply know,
what I deeply know,
the more my thoughts,
the more my thoughts,
my words,
my words,
and my
and
actions
my actions
fully, freely flow.
fully, freely flow.
Hip, hip, hurrah! I always like to add this Monty Python sillyism to the
Yeah.
communication because
I
it
love Monty
breaks the
Python,
ice.
by the way.
You
My
love it. Good.
my favorite is, what's the one with the coconuts? Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
this one show after another,
Yes.
fantastic. And now he does um, presentation coaching. That's what he does for a living.
Okay.
He's graduating and does that. But I was just piggybacking on what you said about Tony Robbins. So I have a particular exercise along with moving the body uh, and those affirmations that connect us with our body that I use with almost every speaker, whether they're a beginning speaker or someone who's at the top of their game. The exercise is simply one where you, as a presenter, speaker, mentor, author, entrepreneur, visionary, whoever you are, comes up with three keywords that match the essence, the quintessence of who you truly are, who you are, and who it is that you want to reach in a way that is absolutely captivating for your audience. So for me, those three keywords are: I'm creative, I'm playful, watch my body language, and I'm transformational. When I encourage speakers to use these words, I have them match the gestures with the words. So when they're on stage, they're able to show what they're telling with their whole body,
Hmm.
displaying the message rather than just being a talking head or look at this cool PowerPoint that I presented.
Yeah.
Many speakers hide behind their content and their PowerPoint, and they don't connect with their body, their message, their messaging, and their audience to develop that relationship that's essential. So I have people say the statement, then whisper the statement. Let's say I whisper that statement. I am creative. I'm playful. I'm transformational. When we whisper and the sound gets softer, then the gestures get louder. So we play with all these different elements. I, you, he, she, we, they. Shout, whisper, sing, mouth with no sound, mime with no movement of the mouth, gibberish. That one's quite a lot of fun because most people are so stuck in trying to get it right that they find it very difficult to break free. So in gibberish, if I were to encourage someone using that same, I'm creative, I'm playful, I'm transformational. It may look like something like this. It sounds like Japanese or
Yeah, doesn't
Chinese or some Asian language.
it?
That's just the way it comes out. But when people do that, it frees them up. It's like, good,
Hmm.
now speak from that place. And so, oh, this is so much fun. And suddenly the melting of their outer shell takes place and their inner essence shines. So this very powerful tool, the multisensory tool for speaking before they say a word, helps people get into the zone, just what we're
Hmm.
talking about.
Yeah.
I, you, he, she, we, they, shout, sing, whisper, mouth, mime, gibberish, write it down, mirror. So it multi-sensorizes. That's one of my key principles. By multi-sensorizing the message, even the speech itself, singing it, shouting it, doing underwater, skipping around, it frees up a person's physiology, physicality, viscerality, and the ability to show what one's telling. So people are reached on many more levels than simply through the intellect or the visual or the auditory or the kinesthetic. It creates so many more layers and levels and dimensions of learning and remembering the presentation. So when people see a person presenting, it is indelibly in the psyche of those who are experiencing it. And then they're more easily able to remember the message and act on the invitation to action. So these are some of my strategies that I use along with being on stage, when you're on stage, to actually use, since you're involved with hypnosis, you're familiar with NLP and you're familiar with the timeline and you're
Hmm.
familiar with, from a speaker's point of view, when a speaker starts talking about the past from their right hand side, it translates as the audience's past, which is how we think in the English language, from the
Hmm.
left to the right. That's how we think of moving from past to the future. So when I go, things that used to happen in proscenium in Greece and Rome, people spoke from way up tall, high in a platform to the multitudes. In university speaking, that has been taking place over recent 400 or 500 years. People speak in assembly halls, and now this type of speaking that we're leading to, past, present, future, is relationship speaking, where we're interacting, and I, you, Martin Buber, I, thou, we're connecting with the soul of the self that we're speaking with, and this is developing a relationship that's even more important than speaking down or speaking to anyone.
Hmm.
That's the timeline. So I show people how to use the stage, not just with past, present, future, when you have a particular story. It's dear to your heart. And it feels energetically that that story belongs here. I'm going to talk about that story here, the time that I, blah, blah, blah. And then when I am referring to that story later on in the conversation with the audience, remember I was telling you about the time that I, and you go right back to that spot. So we're
Right.
training the audience to remember what you're going to say, or even know, prophesize what you're going to say before you even open your mouth. So using the platform to, and platform skills, whether it's the online stage or the physical stage, to help the audience know what you're going to say before you even open your mouth, is another cool tool. It's one of the things I teach in my presentation coaching online and on stage.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, just really quick. So, you have, I know you mentioned that you had a lot of different programs and different things that you do right now. And we're going to have all, for all the people that are watching or listening, we'll have all of that in the description. But do you want to tell about one in particular that you would like to give people an invite to?
Absolutely. Sure. Well, given this conversation, I'm sure that you who are listening, watching, experiencing what I'm doing would be curious. Well, what are my three key words? Or how do I overcome my self-talk on stage, be able to be the fabulous speaker that I dream of being, that I feel like I am, but I've got all these programs going? Contact me. Contact me, and you can have a complimentary half-hour session. We'll put the links in
Okay.
the program. You can easily do that. I have all kinds of different products, book. Actually, here's my book. Get Up, Stand Up for Your Life. No, you
It's
can't. There you go. You can sort of see it with
there we
my
go. Oh, that's a good angle right there.
get up. That's me leaping off a cliff.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
it's being a champion springboard driver. That was easy. So these are again principles. The book is available through my website,
Okay.
mypresentationdoctor.com, all spelled out, mypresentationdoctor.com. You see, I use my body to communicate because
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're going to see what I'm saying and hear it even better when you get the multisensory. So those are two very cool ways to be able to connect with me. I also have another website, drgary.club, drgary.club, that has my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is excellent. I have all kinds of presentation breakthroughs that people have had, my keynote speaking, my being on numerous podcasts, performance art that I do and others have done as well. And there's hundreds of videos and wonderful teaching tools. So I would encourage you to register, basically um, sign up for my YouTube channel. It doesn't cost anything, and then you get all kinds of content and very able to practice some of these teaching principles in an interactive way. And I'd love to hear from you and have the opportunity to work with you directly. Those are three key ways to reach me. The
Beautiful.
complimentary half hour. Of course, I see people online and consulting all the time. I'm happy to offer you that time, as well as coming out to you to be a speaker. I'm coming out to Canada actually in mid-April
Mm-hmm.
for a um, Saskatchewan management conference.
Hmm.
Um, one and a management a one that is actually providing the councilors and mayors of that area to deal with harassment from citizens. So I'm providing Monty Python tools to help people break through who are able to come. And I would love for those who are watching, who may be in North America, who also are interested in having me work with you or your association, your organization, to let me know, because I'm going to be in your neck of the woods anyway in April, and I would love to have more opportunities to make a difference when I'm out there. So those are the ways you can reach me and ways that I can assist you further. We'll put those in the notes as well.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Well, this is so fun, because you're such a storyteller, and I love that. And so, really quick, I just want to, I love all that you're doing, but I would love, we don't have a lot of time left, but I would love to just know when you were growing up, you said you were the black sheep. Did you have siblings, or were you an only
Yeah,
child?
yeah. My sister, my youngest sister, my only sister, who is 3 years younger than me, she did all the right things with the family.
She was the
I
good
broke
child.
free. I didn't get into medical school. I found, the human potential. I broke free, and the more I broke free, the more she clung to the vine. The
Mm,
story of my life, and now I'm a force for helping other people break free from the traps of tradition that have held most people back from fully expressing their authentic selves, their core beliefs, and speaking from full-bodied presence. So that was the beginning of my life. I actually won in my before I became the black sheep. I won the award in Horace Mann Private School for the one senior, that the headmaster award that had the best combination of athletics on the one hand and academics on the other.
mm,
So
okay.
my whole life has been putting together the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, all the creative, all these layers together. So I wasn't a black sheep until I broke free from tradition. And then I
Yeah.
realized I'm not just a black sheep, I'm a multicolored sheep that is able to bring out the true colors and the authentic nature of any being, whether it's a human or an animal. I'm so friendly with all kinds of creatures and helping them fully express themselves. I don't limit myself to humans at all. I happen to be in a human body, so it's easier to
Yeah.
communicate in this
Well,
way. So
it's
that,
funny because I've got a little it's not really called a meme, whatever it is, but I've got a little photo and it has a sheep, but it has all the colors of the rainbow. It's just beautiful, right? And it says, "Don't be the black sheep, be the colorful sheep of the family."
I love that. Would you send me a copy of that?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it again in my
Because
pictures and I'll
that's what
send
I
it to
am,
you.
and that's
Yeah.
who I've become. No, I'm no longer a black sheep. I've always been so far ahead of my times. It's always been my way through
Hmm.
life that I'm much more comfortable pioneering new territory that's never been traversed before, and then showing people how they can do that in their lives. If there's one thing you remember from this conversation, that is that it's actually safer when you're going through a skid. How do you go through a skid? You don't try to get out of the skid. You don't
You
try
go
to make
into
the
it,
skid wrong or fix it or make it a problem. You what? You go
into
into
it.
the skid and then you come out of the skid. So this is my way through life, to embrace the darkness, the light, the rainbows, the blackness, all of it. I love that you shared at the beginning, because that gives a great full acceptance. When I accept myself fully, then I can make the biggest difference in the world. But when I try to prove myself by getting attention, by pleasing others, it never works. So I'm a force of shaking up, waking up. Yes, we are remembering. Yes, we are awakening. Fresh stories, new glories. We dance and sing. This is my way through life. And if it's multidimensional and out of the box, even
Even
better.
better. I love it. I love it. So we are about out of time. So is there one thing that maybe you want to share with everybody that maybe I haven't asked a question, because you've been talking and I've been so engrossed in what you're saying that I really haven't interjected much. So maybe there's something that you wanted to express that I could have asked, but I didn't know to ask. So if you've got something you want to share, go ahead and do that.
My best way of answering questions like that is to repeat the question. And I remember the game, it was called Mad Libs when we were younger.
I
And
do.
you get the first part of a sentence and you fill in the end. So this is how I teach coaching. So I'm going to do it by answering your question without having an answer. If I were Vicky and I was saying to myself, if I had a question that I was going to ask Dr. Gary that I didn't have a chance to ask him because I was so enwrapped with what he was sharing, the question that I would ask him would be, what have you not shared with us that you would like to have us know in leaving, any parting words that you can leave us with, that would be something we can remember you by, before we contact you or practice your principles. Well, this is what came up for me. That for some reason this came up, and it's a really simple statement.
Hmm.
It's always the first time. What do I mean by that? It means that no matter how many times you do that presentation, no matter how many times you go down that street, no matter how many times you have that conversation or a difficult, precious conversation with someone, even though you think you've done it before, it's not true. It's always the first time. Something's different. You're either wearing different clothing, the weather's different, you got something in your throat, you something adds a nuance of nuance. And this is what I'm going to leave you with today, to find out what's already there that has you stand out in your own uniqueness. You don't have to make it up, it's already there. Duh. And to have that lead the way in all of your thinking, speaking, actions, and interactions. And this will open up, like the ship that's stuck in the harbor, by releasing it, being moored to the harbor and it being anchored. It can travel into open seas and discover all kinds of new opportunities that you never would had you clung on to what's familiar. It's always the first time.
Beautiful. I love that. And what that brings up for me is, I'm an avid reader. You can't see, but I've got books here and I got books here and I got books in every room, right? Um, and a lot of them I reread over and over again. But every single time I read that book, there are new words that I never noticed before, new sentences, new thoughts. And so I have things highlighted and bookmarked and notes. But every single time, it's like when I look at it, I think, why did I highlight that? This was more important because I'm different every time I read the book. Yeah.
Exactly. And that gives great encouragement for us to continue to practice the spirit of renewal. Here on the mountain where I live, with waterfalls and creeks and out in the depths of nature, I spend time every day nurturing, inspiring, and empowering myself. And when I can do that for myself first, then I'm good to go. Then I'm good to really connect and present to others. But it's an inside job.
Right.
That's it. It's got to start with us.
Right. Ah, I have loved this conversation so much, Dr. Gary. You just don't even know. Um, so
Oh,
I'm
pleased to hear that.
so I am very grateful to you, and I'm going to leave everyone with my one of my favorite quotes, and it is the best way to predict the future is create it. So now I ask you to make sure that you like, subscribe, and share, and check out Dr. Gary's information in the description, and check him out because it's some very valuable stuff.
That's great. We're just finishing the podcast now. I really appreciate it. And wonderful, good timing. Actually, excellent timing. Someone's just walking into this room, so your timing is impeccable.
Ah,
Thank you, Vicky.
beautiful. And thank you. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye for now.